Hello and welcome to another episode of Circular Insights. My name is Legion and I will be your host again today. So I'm really happy to have with me a friend and a special guest called Vernon Foo. He is actually a sustainability advocate, entrepreneur, and corporate leader that's really passionate about advancing circular economy and renewable energy solutions. And he does so across Southeast Asia. Now, he co-founded CM Eco, which is a social enterprise promoting biodegradable packaging, and later led ventures in electric vehicle charging and solar development through Mako Solar. With professional experiences across Malaysia, Australia, India, Poland, and the Philippines, Vernon has actually spoken at major forums, including the Malaysia Sustainable Development Goals Summit, the ASEAN M&E Show, and Team Canada Trade Mission. A former chairman of Samantha Sustainability and Circular Economy Committee, which is actually in Malaysia, as well as a HRDC certified corporate trainer, Vernon has actually trained over more than 300 delegates internationally. Driven by his belief in service and sustainable community building, Vernon continues to inspire others to power lives responsibly and sustainably. So, welcome, Vernon, to our podcast today.
Hi, hi, Legion. Thank you for having me today. Very excited to have this conversation. I know we've been talking about it for a while now, but hey, the day is here.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to it too, because part of your journey has really been in as an entrepreneur in the sustainability space. And I'd love to actually pick your brains on that to just ask, what have you observed about being an entrepreneur in the sustainability space?
Um, well, okay, right into it. Okay, so when it comes to being in a sustainability space, I I think for I'm going to speak from my perspective, of course.
Hmm,
And I think for me, it sort of starts off how you get involved in a rally towards a cause,
hmm, hmm,
right? Right. But I think organically, at least from my age group, you don't really start off that way because it's not something that we really looked at and covered back in, back in school, back in university, as we went through that journey. But okay, so what was the call, right? So
hmm,
so when we get into, I think there's two parts of it. One is the rally to the cause you're working towards, and one is the business itself. Okay, let's talk about that rally first. And then you you decide on a cause that you want to be passionate about. Okay,
hmm,
because you see many different causes, environmental related, social related, you name it, and you sort of look for a cause that appeals to you based on your background, your upbringing, and then you stick with it. Okay, you choose one to build on. Okay, so that's the part where you get thrown into this space or cause on being environmentally sound and aware, right?
hmm,
All the way through to environmental stewardship. It really is um, a lot. It really is a lot. I think there's no other way to say it. There is so much info online or in the space that when you start, you actually don't know what is valid and what is real and what isn't. And having said that, when you first get your footing on this cause, sometimes it's about also trying to figure out where you're at, in terms of being on a spectrum, dedicated to a cause. Are you fully on the right side of it where okay, do or die, I believe in this cause, or are you on the left side of it, you don't believe it, or you're somewhere in the middle, trying to find a balance between that cause. Okay, now the other side of that balance is the business, right?
hmm,
And when we talk about being in a business, or be it a social enterprise or a conventional business, I think we always have to find a balance that and accept the fact that a business has to make profit for it to be called a business and for it to be sustainable. And then comes that tagline eventually that came out with people, planet, profit, right? How do you balance environmental stewardship, people, the needs of the masses, and profit. And I think that's the first thing I think we need to figure out when we get to this space.
Yeah, I love how like you start off with like saying that a lot of people actually probably get into something, a cause that they believe in because they feel strongly about something they have to do about it, right? So
Yeah,
it's something they can't look away from. It keeps calling back to them that there is something that needs to be done. And there are so many different ways that people approach this. Some people, stay in the volunteering space. Some people go on into really hardcore activism space with, placards
yeah,
and hugging roads and things like that. And then you have
yeah,
like another group of people who are sort of like not very sure actually where they want to go, but then they start realizing or exploring that perhaps, entrepreneurship or doing it through businesses is a way to actually enter and do a much bigger impact for this particular thing that they care about. And it could be for something in the environment that they do care about. And like you also mentioned, it could also even be for very social reasons, like working with vulnerable people, maybe vulnerable youth,
yeah,
or we want to build just societies and things like that. And to actually look at business to play that additional role. Because as you said, the traditional way of looking at business seems to be like, okay, we're just here to make the money, make sure our livelihoods taken care of, and that's about it. But what you drew there in that description really was that there is that additional role that business could play in addition to protecting livelihoods, although that's still very important, making sure you can actually sustain the business. But what for is that business? I think that's really, really interesting dynamic.
yeah, yeah. It adds additional layers of complexity to people stepping into the business scape, right? Because that's assuming that you come from a background that's not a business, right? You're a career person, a salary man, and you jump into business, and then okay, first it's figuring out how do you run a business, and then you haven't quite figured it out, and then you're like, okay, we need to save the environment. Where where's the connect? And that's it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of reading and knowledge, and really tinkering about your mental model of how it should be before you find that sweet spot in between, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
Yeah,
mm. And as you rightly sort of like pointed out, I think it is quite common for people to actually jump into the business without knowing much of the how to run the business part of it.
yeah,
And it's probably, I mean, even just without the extra layer of complexity, it is quite common for new businesses to actually be
yeah,
established and then fail within the
yeah,
first year. And then by the next 5 years,
yeah,
most of them are just surviving. They're not actually even, being profitable in that sense. So once you add in that
exactly.
extra layer, so-called, of considerations that you have for people and planet, on top of the profits. It's something that is a new skill. Is that right? That you need to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you do. Not only you have to learn about it, because right after you figure that part out, is then you need to learn how to be the best storyteller in town. How do
Mm,
you tell your story on why what you're doing through your business and the cause that it supports is the business and the cause that you want to support,
mm,
right? So if that's not clear for you, how do you translate that? How do you explain that to an audience or your target segment into
yeah.
why it should be you versus someone else or your competitors in the market?
And it also, I guess, affect like whether or not you have that confidence to put up the price that you need in order to sustain your operations, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And speaking about price, I think that's where I have to come back to another critical point, which I feel is so important when it comes to social entrepreneurs. Is we're talking about a product or a service, right? And before we talk about price, I think the first thing we should be looking at really is what is the product or the service market fit? Do you
Mm,
have a viable offering that actually addresses a need in the market or the market that you're targeting? and that's sizable enough, and people want to or are willing to compensate you for that offering.
Mm.
And I think when you get that part right, or you start the business with that in mind, not many of us do that. Unfortunately, I'm guilty as well. We started a business without that part in mind, but it's so important that you get that part right. Then you can talk about the price, because when you have that bit right, then the pricing becomes,
Easy.
easier, much easier. It
Yeah.
won't be the easiest, but it becomes much easier. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if we have met, if we are an entrepreneur that currently maybe feels like we're always being drawn into that conversation of our price, of our costs, then this is probably a good signal point for us to go back and revisit actually what is that pain that we're solving? How big is that
Yeah,
pain? And
yeah,
is it something that people would want to, get rid of that pain? Uh, yeah, as you say, you need a sizable sort of market
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, exactly. Because you could have the best product, the most sustainable product or offering or service, um, but the market that you're currently serving doesn't need it.
Yeah, it's a nice to have also.
It becomes a nice to have. It's no longer a must have, And the moment it becomes a nice to have, of course, depending who your customer segment is, um, it's no longer going to be something people need. And when it becomes and it hits in that trajectory, then you'll have to start to really reflect on both personally where you're at, from a business perspective as well, where you're at right now, and is this business still serving, or this journey or this direction still serving the purpose I intended? And then you have to revisit that.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to pivot.
Mm,
uh,
mm,
yeah,
mm. And
these are definitely.
pivoting is actually not a bad thing, right?
It's not, and I think, um maybe again it's the maybe the age group, the expectation. You take one way, that's the way to go. It's but again, I don't think, it comes to a point where you have a bad choice or worse choice.
Mm, mm,
There are situations where it can be like that. So you have to realize that any move is better than none.
mm.
Not moving is a choice as well, or not changing directions or not pivoting,
Yeah,
but that also translates to the same results, right?
yeah.
So if we're going to change that, we want to change that outcome, we'll have to pivot. So it comes, and it's not a bad thing. It could be a lateral movement, vertical, horizontal, whatever you want to call it, but it's still a move. And I think the only way you're going to change the outcome is if you first and foremost you start moving,
Mm, mm. I love how you said
right?
like not moving is also a choice. Not changing is
Yeah,
also a choice. And it seems like what you have described there is that so long as you know what is the what is the impact you're trying to create for the cause, how you get to that impact is actually quite fluid.
yeah,
It can evolve over
yes,
time. And to some
exactly.
extent, you sort of have to let go of that preconceived illusion, or even what some people may call the ego of it, to say that, oh, that's the way, that's the only way, I'm never going to change that way to get to where I want to get to, and really
Exactly.
pay attention to what is that end, what is the impact that you're trying to get to, and then letting
Yeah,
go of what's not working to then figure out
yeah,
what's going to work and help you get there.
exactly,
Wow.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. I think like definitely through observation, a lot of sort of people who jump into entrepreneurship with that sort of impact driven or sustainability driven do find that, the wider sort of purpose of like, oh, for clean air or for removing plastic pollution, this is like a given. Everyone should be doing this. And that's, I guess, where I think I would challenge you a little bit based on what you were saying just now. Is this not sufficient for people to actually buy in to an impact driven type of business offering?
um maybe what I'll do is I'll give you two scenarios. Okay, so So we spoke about plastics problem, right?
Mm,
Okay. So now and I go back to my experience, when we did distribution for biodegradable alternatives. So you're bringing an item to the market, which it's a substitute to an existing product or service, right? And there's a completely different price point. Now, again, how do let's assume this is the price point the market's willing to pay
mm.
for this item to solve this particular problem. And in this case, it's taking away food,
Okay.
right? And then you enter the market, okay, with the full story, the sustainability part of it, environmental protection, and that's going to be costing a bit more than what this does because it's newer, it's new technology, it's not mass market yet, and it's going to cost more, right? So this is where the price point is. So how do you justify that to the market?
That difference between
That
what they're
difference,
willing
right?
to.
How do you Well, what they're willing to pay for? They both products serve the same purpose. It is to take away food. One is cheaper, one is more durable. But again, the consideration is if we're talking or making comparison to, let's say, plastic products. I'm not against plastic products, just for the record.
Put it
I
out
think they're
there.
great products. But it's again it's how the entire cycle is managed, right?
Yeah.
The after. But if we talk about plastic products, it's been around for since the 1960s, 1970s. It's been around forever. So it is that year after year after year of R&D, how to perfect and make this fantastic product. Not only did it make it fantastic and durable, they made it really, really cheap. Right? So how do you bring in this other product and have that? And that's one of the things. That's one of the things. So in our journey as a distributor, um, it's something I'm proud of, but it's also something that we'd have to come to accept is that we've never carried plastics, throughout our entire journey. So since 2018 till today, we've only ever carried sustainable solutions, right? Um, and the number of players in the market, and from the time we started till now, they a lot of them are no longer around today. Really, I've seen many. Um, and then there were the guys who did everything like um, I distribute takeaway food packaging, and that includes biodegradable alternatives, paper, plastics, and because they were offering all three offerings to the market, um, while the market was still learning about what biodegradable products were, while the market was still figuring out what is it, how is it different, how does it benefit me, how does it help the environment, how does it help the next generation. Um, Before people make a switch, they still need to solve that problem. They need to pack their food, so they will naturally buy an existing product, a cheaper product, right? And that is the um, scenario of what had happened in the market that we had to learn because the guys who did that grew 2-3 times what our size because they were catering to the market, and that came back down to your initial foundation that a business must first and foremost make profit,
Mm.
right? So I jumped to the next scenario, and this time it's the energy space, right? And we're talking about the energy space. We're talking about finding a cause, um, and it's a different scene altogether. I think initially when these products came out to the market, let's say solar, for example, it's very costly. People are like, oh my God, it's unfathomable. How do I spend that much money to have a couple of panels on my roof to generate energy at home? And then over time, as more people in the market started buying into it, more deployments happen, the prices have started to come down and more and more and more and more. And today it's so viable that everyone's doing it. But not only are they doing it, the businesses have also changed and evolved to how they're offering these products to the market. Initially, it was an outright purchase. You buy the panels, you pay for the labor and the services. People get it set up for you. And then you move on, right? Today, what's evident in both the Chinese market and globally is people are coming to the market and offering zero capex or zero capital expenditure options, where as a customer, from a business customer, right? You're talking about commercial clients, you don't have to pay a single cent. So now you sort of pivoted how you're proposing this to the market. You change the offering. It's the same offering, but you're changing the method in which you're offering that to the market. And now let's say you're a commercial client, and as a commercial client, you go, wait a minute, you're offering me renewable energy where I don't have to pay any single cent on the outlay for the initial setup of that system on my building. You're offering options to potentially manage the tariff on which I pay on a monthly basis. Um, and then you're telling me you're going to manage the operations and maintenance for the entire system, for the entire tenure of this system, which could be anywhere between 15 to 25 years. Then it becomes, as a customer, what's a no-brainer? Yes, where do I sign?
Yeah,
You know?
because you've sort of like hit the pain points right on the spot, right? You're not sort of trudging around it. You're not trying to say, oh, accept this pain for the bigger cause or the bigger good. You're sort of just saying like, this is your pain. Let's see what we can do about it to solve it. Hit it the nail right on the head. And then this becomes a no-brainer for you to switch.
Exactly. And these are two scenarios of our sustainable solutions, yes. Two very different markets. And you can see how they're evidently very, very different in terms of how they're performing. But when we're talking about sustainable packaging, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to go to the market because it's a perishable item, right? And go, hey, how would you like free packaging?
Yeah,
I mean, anyone would say yes, yes, just give it to me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again, it's change. It's a change. So having said that, I think that also comes back down to knowing how to pivot, how you get to your intended destination.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting that, like, when we look at different sectors, there is very specific things that need to be done for the different industries or the different sectors. And I think that's the beauty of looking at it from the circular economy sort of standpoint, because it's not
Yeah,
just the product that you can, I don't want to say mess around with, but basically be creative and figure out
yeah,
alternative solutions
yeah,
from material standpoint or how you produce a product, etc. But it's also in the business model, which what you just beautifully described just now in terms of how you offer it to the market. There's so many different things that you could pull on or test out and see what is actually going to help people solve the pains. Just for example, like we recently have been doing something on e-waste, and
yeah.
and it's not about so much that it's just push more pressure onto the product designers and then e-waste would be gone, right? It's not as simple as that. There's actually
It's not.
it's not, and it's not as simple as we'll just put more recycling centers and we'll recover all this stuff and somehow magically all the material will go back into economy. It's not as easy as that because there's
It's
so
not.
much
It's not.
complications in the product. So when we start looking at it sort of in that perspective of like, what is it that is actually preventing people from actually dealing with the e-waste. Then you start seeing different things actually emerging. And we had a really interesting conversation with 12 other providers in that space. And they were like, well, one of it is actually data. Like we don't even know exactly what models, what quantities of these electrical and electronic appliances are. And therefore, when you're trying to plan out a business that can profit from it, I mean, you don't even have security of your input source. Are you making bad
Yeah.
business decisions on this if there's
Yep.
no data
Yep.
infrastructure to back you up? And that's actually the sort of Achilles heel or the stone that trips you over. Because all intention be good and saying, I want to get into a recovery process or a remanufacturing or a repair or a redistribution of these electrical and electronic items. But if you don't have that fundamental business information to plan out the business offering, then you're
How do
really
you do
planning
it?
yourself to fail in that business. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow, that's really
And
interesting.
if I may add on, Legend, I think that's where it's tricky. In a lot of the sustainability spaces, a lot of these problems have not yet been solved,
Mm,
which makes way for a lot of opportunity, really, really a lot. But it comes back down to how much runway you have and how long you can sustain yourself as well,
yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about e-waste. So, I was very shocked to read just the other day of a recycler for solar panels going under,
Oh, oh, okay.
right? If I'm not mistaken, it was in Australia. And that makes you question, like, with solar being in the market for at least 2, 3 decades now, there is definitely enough input. Then it becomes a discussion, perhaps an argument on the logistics of it.
Mm,
How do you move that much things? And it used to be way, way heavier. Okay, one solar panel today weighs approximately about 3 kilograms. I don't 30 kilograms. Wait, is that right? I can't remember.
I'm not
Well,
from
anyway,
solar, Vernon.
30. I'm having a moment.
No
But
worries. In
anyway,
any
so
case, it is much lighter now today.
it is much lighter now. Yes, yes. But having said that, now assuming it's 3 kilos. So assuming it's 3 kilos, right? And you have 1,000 panels on a commercial roof. That's 3 tons.
Yeah.
And how do you move all that to recycling plant? It's not like the plant's right next to you, you know? And in fact, for most of these deployments, a lot of people in the market, they have to go to places which are underserved. So it's easily 5, 6 hours of driving to a site, movement of products, manpower, technology, specialty skills, just to build something. And then in the next 25 years, what is the plan to recover these? And that's
Mm,
where I suppose circular thinking as well comes back in, right? Anyway,
yeah.
anyway, lots of questions there. But yeah, back
Yeah.
to you, back to you.
Yeah, no, I love what you described there because we actually had another podcast episode. Some of our audience may have already heard it around batteries as well, and that was also the point that they raised about the logistical part of it. Moving around batteries is not as simple as one would imagine. Apart from the physical logistical difficulties, and in their case, it was shipping being a bit more difficult. There's also the concerns around hazardous waste, permits, regulations, cross-border movements, things like that
Exactly.
that come into play. And I love how you actually mentioned that this actually creates so much opportunity for people to solve those problems. We don't actually look at as I think as an entrepreneur, generally we're people who like problem solving. Is that correct? And and
Yeah,
yeah, you
we
look for a
do.
problem, try and solve it, and profit in the
We're
in between.
we're we're addicted to solving problems
Yeah, so the more
every day.
problems there are, the more opportunity there is to solve it.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I think coming back down to our conversation, it really comes back down to well, it's all fun and games, priorities in the families changes. I'm a dad now. When I started my business, I wasn't a dad. Right. And having said that, you start to realize, okay, can I continue to solve problems um for fun? Or is it actually going to generate something for us as a family? And that's
Mm,
where you really have to find a balance. And that doesn't mean that if you don't have any kids, you don't want to make money. It really just means that, you really have to be sensible here. When you wanting to start a business or be a social entrepreneur, again, come back down to the various points we've covered so far. You know, really think about, is it still serving a purpose, and reflect on that
Mm.
every year, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like having those type of so-called limitations is actually not limitations. It's a way to actually sharpen the entire approach you have towards looking at pain points as well.
Yeah.
And it helps you move away from, offerings that are more nice to have, because what you would be experiencing in your own self life is very much the same experiences that a lot of people have in their day-to-day life when they're choosing between, am I going to go for a sustainable product in my business, or, take up somebody's offering, or even as a person, right? As personal individual level, am I able to go and purchase all these sustainable products that are currently still higher price than the so-called
Yeah.
incumbents? These are really real considerations that everybody faces. So the more that we sort of tune in to that, it sharpens that pain point. That what is it that you're trying to solve that would help get you to the intended destination for your cause. And I think that really helps bring the hammer closer to the nail, instead of, like you
Yeah.
said, solving it just for fun, or solving it for so-called the greater purpose, but not actually really caring about what pains people are actually facing in getting
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah. So since we're on that point, you mentioned that obviously different life stages bring across different challenges. Like becoming a dad, obviously has added additional layers of things you need to consider about. So one of the topic I remember I had like a really quick conversation with you was that you and I have both actually used coaches before, in our pursuit of
Yes.
our various businesses and our causes. So what are your thoughts about using coaches? Because from what I observe, it seems like there are not as many people in the so-called sustainability space that really, work with business coaches or coaches in particular. Has that been the same observation
Um,
on your end?
I think it's a mix. I think when you have a coach, you sort of meet other people who have coaches.
Ah, that's true.
Right, because you're part of that circle, so that say it comes to light. And before that, you don't really. And I think maybe let's hit it from the perspective of jumping into entrepreneurship. Do you think about having a coach in the first place? No, you don't. The reality is most people don't even know about that offering, because we weren't marketed to as a as someone who didn't run a business, right? So having a coach, I think, is needed so much in the market today,
Mm,
because you're tackling two things. I mean, you're sort of figuring out your sustainability direction and your cause. But when you talk about business, I think you need a coach, preferably a coach who understands both avenues, or otherwise, at the very least, the business avenue, because the business part won't run. You
yeah,
still need to have a good product offering, a market that's willing to pay for it, and you need to make a profit.
yeah.
Um, so having a coach to actually guide you on the fundamentals of running a business, I think, is critical.
Mm,
And I think when you consider that move into running a business, I think a big part of having to understand about your growth journey in that line is you really have to be willing to spend both time and money um, to engage with someone who knows how that journey should be, right?
mm,
Not to do the work for you, but to teach you and give you insights on how it can be.
mm,
At the end of the day, I think there's a very clear distinction. Your coaches are not here to do your work for you, but they're here to guide you. And at the end of the day, it is your business and it's your baby. So that the onus that responsibility still falls with you to decide how you want to run your business,
Mm, mm. Yeah,
right?
because even the journey of like feeling very strongly about something you want to solve to actually getting into the business is already how to say, it can be very confusing and messy and things already. And the last thing you want to do is sort of get into it without actually someone who's very familiar with how businesses are run to give you those skill
Yeah,
sets, to give you the processes thinking through from the business perspective. Because it's already hard to figure out your cause, to figure out your
yeah,
solution. And you
yeah.
now want to try and figure out the business part as well. It's kind of like you can do it. Some people have done it, but at what sort of length of time?
At what cost?
At
At
what
what cost,
cost?
right?
Yeah.
What
Do
is the
you want to
opportunity
take
cost
30
here?
years to get there? Or do you want to get there in like
Exactly,
3 to 5 years, you know?
exactly, and that's where I feel things like coaches or even having assistance or help at home, especially when you have a young family, what you're really paying for is the time.
Mm,
You're paying so that you don't take, for example, 30 years to figure out how to run a business. You're not paying so that to figure out how much time you need to actually finally write a book, for example.
yeah,
so so the idea here is willingness to spend, but the bit, the overarching bit is spending on personal
yourself.
development. Yourself, you are spending on yourself. That's where the money's going to. It might be going to somebody else's bank account, but that time that comes back is for you. That knowledge that you gain is for you. It is about building yourself up, and that's where I feel the world of building a corporate career and being an entrepreneur is a lateral thing, because you have to build yourself up either way if you're going to move up
Mm,
in the world, from a career perspective or even as a business. And that's why businesses who have been around for longer uh, know better what to do, because they've served that time,
mm,
right? And in that time, the amount of problem solving that's gone into surviving to that point, and then wanting to thrive, that's where it comes in.
mm. Yeah, yeah. And I was sort of like mindful that, the climate crisis or whatever sustainability challenges, it seems like time is very short. And very often people like,
Yeah,
when I solve it, I will get to it. I will get
yeah,
the assistant. I will get the coach. I will hire the employees. But it's sort of the other way around. It is because you don't have much time. That's why you
yeah,
do the coaching now. That's why you do the hiring now. That's why you get the assistant now, because there is not much time to, in a way, fumble around, try and figure it out, go in, all sorts of directions before you realize, oh, shucks, maybe that doesn't actually lead that to where I want to go. And
yeah,
I love how you actually said, what you're paying for is really for the time that you get back because you've invested in yourself to build up yourself. And the stronger that you are as in clarity, I think, in terms of what you're doing, it gives you a lot more sort of um, confidence to pursue what you are pursuing because you're not
it,
really
it, it,
alone in that way.
it grounds you to your direction,
Mm, mm. Why
right?
did you get
Because
the coach, Vernon? I'm just curious, because like maybe in the audience there'll be people are thinking like, yeah, I know this, I know it intellectually, but I haven't done it. So I'll share mine, and then you can, yeah, and then yeah, I'd love to hear why you got your coach. Yeah, I got my coach
Yeah,
because I became a mom of two young kids. They're both under 5. And I wanted to be a certain type of mom that was very present in their childhood while also pursuing what I felt was really important to create a world that they could grow up in and enjoy it, enjoy the beauty of it. So that's why I applied myself into business, and then I realized that I actually don't really, know how to run the business. So I went I went for coaches because yeah, that's the way I can accelerate my growth. And then I found that actually how I approached it was also limited by my own belief systems. So I started going to get other coaches as well. Part of it was in I was looking at how to deal with my emotions, the emotional well-being of it, how to balance it, what were the underlying belief systems that was stopping me or making me procrastinate or hesitate on a lot of good deals that were coming around. And then I also have worked with a health coach because I realized my energy was not keeping up with what I wanted to do. I couldn't keep up with my kids. So how to protect my energy. And that's been a really interesting combination of experiences from business coaches, health coaches, emotional well-being coaches, just just allowing me to be slower, but time expands because of it. And
Yeah,
therefore
yeah,
the
yeah,
I'm more effective, which is quite counterintuitive. You think like, oh, the more you push, the more you grind, the more you take every opportunity and you're going to get there somehow faster. But actually, without clarity, you're using a lot of energy and time on things that maybe don't actually matter. It's just a lot of activity instead of effective decision making. So that's me.
so this there's two parts I want to say about that before I get into my coach. Um I think more often than not we get caught up in our idea of that perfect outcome, right? And that's why we wait till the end for it to be perfect and then say, oh, this is what I'm going to do when I get there. And running a business is, be it a social entrepreneurship or not, it's a journey. It
Mm,
really is a journey, and you have to trial and error every single day. And as long as you take each day as it comes and you're improving day on day, uh, then it's just a matter of time before you sort of get there,
mm,
right?
mm.
Um, so having said that, I think we all start that way. And eventually over time you sort of mellow down and you're like, hey, you know what? It's okay. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm still here today. Right? Right. So okay, so what got us into our coaching? So um with my business when I founded it, my other half, my now wife and then girlfriend was a part of that business, right? And we had started in 2018. We'd run the business, but we realized that we were not um, business people. We were career builders. We were corporate people, you know. So we needed to understand how to run the business or how to work it really fast, or we just lose the business altogether. So what started out from that pain point um, to eventually going into running a business, uh, and that sort of tunes in directly into COVID.
Mm.
Then running a business with your partner and who is also your other half, and being in four walls fine for almost 2 years.
Tough, tough.
It is a tough one. It is. It is. It really is. So I also think that our journey in coaching pivoted, right? It started off as, okay, this is where I am as a business now. This is where I want to be. What's missing and how do I figure out how to get there? To, okay, how do I maintain my business, keep it growing, and also maintaining my personal life,
Yeah.
right? So we learned the best thing about that journey in pivoting in both business and coaching is that we learned how to work together. We learned how
Mm,
to set boundaries, how to communicate, uh, how to limit where that communication goes when it's business related and it's after hours. Then it becomes a personal choice for that other partner to either pick it up immediately or pick it up the next day during work hours. And really, I think I can't say this enough. It's so important that you get that right, especially when you're running such a thing, business, this animal with it could be your spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be, a relative, a family member. Um, but when you can work that right, you know, wow, you can do a lot. You can actually do a lot together, and then you realize that you know it doesn't just stick to just who you are in your immediate familiar circle. It's whoever's in your team, and
Yeah,
they'll learn and they'll build on that as well. And suddenly you have a really effective team of everyone working together,
yeah. It's that sort of
right?
influence that grows because it's
Yes,
being modeled in the
yes,
flesh, right? It's in the
exactly,
flesh.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I love
So
how you
so
actually talk
so
about boundaries as well. Yeah, sorry.
yes, it's so important. Sorry. So and that's and just to wrap up that part, and that's how we came to choose a coach, because um the coach we chose uh had always one thing that she stuck to, and it was about building both a great business and a great life.
Mm,
That was her one rule, a non-negotiable.
yeah,
If you learn from me, that is how I want to build it. And ever since then, we've whatever we've sort of dipped our hands into, that is the mindset we bring to the table, and that's why I'm proud to say people stay with us, people stick with us, because um, we run a business. We know how to crunch and grind at the business, but we also know how to make time for each other and give each other time to be with people who are important to each other, and also for you to have life outside of the office, for sports, yeah, time for your hobby, because you got to find a balance between time for family, time for your business, time for your hobbies, time for your health, and you only have 24 hours a day, so you have to find a balance between that, because spending more time in any one of those arcs will result in less time in another part of it.
yeah. And I think like that's probably the scary part about talking of work-life balance, because very often it feels like you're just juggling all these balls that's in the air. And at some point you're going to drop a ball and then you beat yourself up for doing that. But when we actually talk about work-life balance, personally, I think it's a myth. There's no work-life balance at all. What you described there is actually closer to what I would call work-life integration, where you've accepted
Yeah,
it as a non-negotiable in your life, and therefore you include it in all your considerations right from the start. Yeah. So that's
exactly. That's exactly right. And I think if I may add on, I think one of the biggest things we learned in that journey on setting boundaries is when to say no.
mm. And it can be
Believe it
learned.
or not, it can be learned. And it really is one of the bigger things. It's so small, when you think about it, just saying no, but it's actually very, very powerful, because you learn how to protect not only your boundaries, you're protecting your space, you're protecting your time, uh, and
You're
you're also
protecting your
conditioning
mind
people
space.
your mind space. Yes, exactly. And you're also conditioning the people around you that this is how I function. I'm going to respect my time, for the various areas which are important in my life, and when I say no, uh, this is the window I have for you. Let's do it. Otherwise, no, then I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
very important to me, you know,
Yeah.
and that's where
So
you
it's
have
not
to
so
learn.
much about the no and then you forgo that opportunity. It's about having the clarity of what you're actually saying yes to because
Yeah.
you say no to something else, right? You need to know what
Yes,
is it that you're
exactly.
actually protecting? What is it that you actually want? Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Sort of like tips there. And I'm sure in the audience, some people are like saying, "Oh my God, I really don't have much time. How do you even go and make time for more coaches?" And this is where I will say that the first hire that's really necessary for a lot of founders or people who begin their entrepreneurship journey. Once you reach a point where you can go hire an assistant, it can be a virtual assistant. It doesn't have to be a full-time personal assistant all the time with you, but just somebody who can you can just pass over some very repetitive things. And it could be checking all your emails and picking out which one is
Yeah,
the important ones. It could be
yeah,
just
exactly.
replying people on the WhatsApp because, to differentiate what is family stuff and what's business stuff, right? So that you have to, when you're in the mind space of dealing with all your business stuff, you're not getting distractions from all the other social or family related things that aren't like pressing or urgent. And
Yeah,
vice versa, when you're with your family, you're not getting pinged all the time of your business. And I think this is really where that boundary setting is like you get additional help to give you more buffer because holding your boundary all on your own may be really tough, right? You have more emotional baggage, you have more attachment
yeah,
towards each of these relationships. And having a virtual assistant, and that actually has been something that's really helped me a lot and how I've been able to grow a lot more this year because I've had someone to be that buffer for me and say, I'm holding that space for you, Legion, so that you do what you need to do and that only you can do. Right. So it's
yeah,
not like pass everything over virtual assistant. I don't care anymore. But it's a journey. It's a journey of
yeah,
saying that what is
yeah,
it
yeah,
that I can build systems up for in order for somebody else to handle it. And I think that process of building up that system is a very good foundation towards also hiring in the future for your employees because you know
yeah,
that that's how you want it to be done. This is the system that's been set up. And if someone can do it
yeah,
better than you, go ahead. But
yeah.
at
No,
the very
exactly.
least, you feel it's covered, right? So as a founder, you feel more
Yeah,
assured. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's
But truth be
also
told, though, I have
yeah.
actually gone through five different virtual assistants before I found one
Have you?
that worked well with me. So don't go off this like podcast and say, okay, I'm getting a virtual assistant. The first one I get is going to be the perfect fit. Everything. No, it's a journey. It's a journey, as we said. Yeah,
It,
meeting
it is.
purpose.
It is a journey. You have to get to know the people you bring into both your life, your business, and it's really also a balance of being able to trust and let go. Sometimes you're so used to doing everything by yourself, you don't want to let go because, hey, what if it's not done the way I want it to be? I don't want it done. And it's a struggle, but you have to find a compromise, a mutual ground where you can let go and let someone come in to help you and balance that out with what you need done, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think as founders or entrepreneurs, the key strength we have is the problem solving. But when you're caught up with many activities in the business, I think it was you, Vernon, who actually shared with me that are you running the business or are you being run by the business or something like that? What was it? What was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the sayings. I think it's more, are you working in the business or on the business?
Yes, yes.
Right?
Are you
Right.
working?
So,
What is working in the
so
business, Vernon?
working in the business means like you're doing the day to day, you're doing the grind every day. It's a routine, like you get into the office, you're checking on your emails, you're having your meetings, or which meetings throughout the day, you are working in the business,
Yeah.
right? And then you start to differentiate as you go, what are priorities that are actually going to move the needle towards your destination,
Yeah.
and what aren't, but also critical and still needs to be done. And that's when you differentiate the two things,
Mm,
right? So that's one part. That's the working on the business part. And then there's working, I'm sorry, that's working in the business now. And now we're just working on the other hand, we are working on the business, right? That's when you take the time to step outside that routine, just so you have the time to think about, okay, where is this business going? How much more resources are we going to need to get there to the next checkpoint?
yeah.
Be it be it materials for your product or service, be it manpower, people that you want to bring in, what talent is currently missing from our internal talent pool in order for us to have a solid team that's going to be able to support each other to get there. And that's where it comes in, right? I think
Yeah.
yes, that's what we were talking about one time, and I think it's so important um, as business owners, because as the CEO or the founder, you gotta have time like this because um, you're the captain of the ship. You have
Mm.
to decide where this boat is going to sail.
Yeah.
And then throughout the journey, when that clarity is there, it gives very strong confidence to the rest of the shipmates. Hey, everyone sort of knows their roles. Everyone's happy to pitch in anywhere else on the ship because the direction is very clear.
Yeah.
This is where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that analogy. I love that analogy. And yeah, it's you have to almost protect that vision because no one's going to truly understand it the exact same way that you do. So I'm mindful of this podcast coming to its end. So I'd like to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
ask you last final question, Vernon. Now, if you had a sort of magic wand and you could wave it, what would you most like to see in the coming years for this space?
When we say this space, we're talking about generally circularity as a whole.
It could be circularity, it could be the entrepreneurs in sustainability space. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So from a personal space, what I want to see happen is more communities build up, proving to the overall market that you can set up sustainable communities with the environment in mind, with people in mind, and still be able to make a profit, a product or a service that the world is willing to pay for, because that will help, you know, the the will help the entire system run off the mill, keep going, and
Yeah.
that will grow and eventually flourish. So I want to see more stories or more people in that
Mm.
space, and I hope to achieve it as well.
Mm.
um, and that's from a personal space. And in the market in general, I think what CBAS is amazing. What I feel that's really amazing about CBAS is that the platform itself allows people like us to come together, and it doesn't matter which part of the world you're at. You can find a community that you can sort of connect with. So having a platform like this, I think it's where it starts, and then as you grow, it becomes more focused on, okay, you start building a platform whereby, okay, there are people who are doing this in this part of the world, and then there are people who are doing this in another part of the world. And in fact, actually, when they come together, they become a very serious contender in that particular sector or industry. And I think that's the big picture. you know Now it's very by chance if you meet someone, because I know it's an initial phase, and it's the same for any group or platform you sort of come on. But then when you have a very clear distinction of what you stand for, and people come together, and with a focus on sustainability, circularity in mind, now you can connect to really push the needle, or make a change in the world that's going to be beneficial for the generations to come. And I think that would be what I want to see, and more younger people in the space coming up, and for them to eventually be able to be part of that circle as well, and being able to talk to more senior or older business owners or social entrepreneurs in that space, and what they had to figure out so that they can move twice as fast as we can,
Yeah.
and they'll always have time ahead of them because they're so much younger. And what the only difference between um, someone who's a decade younger than me and and me where I am now is um, what effort they're gonna put into that time before they get to the same age I am now.
Yeah.
And if they put it all in, they're gonna be achieving great things.
Mm. And I love
Yeah.
how you said that every time we run our own journey, our own 4-minute mile in a way, we're actually paving the possibility for another wave of talents to break that 4-minute mile and run even faster. And they don't have to actually do it alone, because when platforms like Cbase comes together, what we actually saying is it's not just sharing experience and then you go figure it out. Is that we actually have the people there. We build up that trust in each other. We're all trying to solve different aspects of the problem, and you can leverage on each other. So you remember how we talked about coaches or even virtual assistants, and there are so many other partners, collaborators, distributors, even employees to bring this vision that you have for yourself as a founder of how you're going to solve that problem to life. You really don't
Yeah.
want to do that alone. It's not a one man kick all, one woman kick all situation. If you want speed, you want, scale of that impact, then coming together is actually the direction that would get you there faster.
All right.
So thank you
As
so
as
much.
as as this as the saying goes, you want to go fast, go yourself. You want to go far, you go together.
That's very true. That's very true. So thank you so much, Vernon, for having this conversation with me. I had a really enjoyable time. And I think this is definitely something that most people don't talk about when we deal with sustainability, because, it seems so posh, it seems so professional, it seems like you need to know everything already. It's more technical knowledge that's going to get you there. But I loved how our conversation really peeled back to say that at the core of it, that human and the clarity that you allow yourself to reach is what's going to really drive you to go in this journey in the long run. So thank you so much, Vernon, for this episode.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise, thank you for having me today. I had a fantastic time in this conversation. So looking forward to more topics to talk about in the coming months.
Yep. Thanks very much, Vernon. And to all the audience, thank you for staying with us. If you haven't subscribed yet to our podcast, please click the subscribe button so you can always hear the next episode that's coming on. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Goodbye.